Welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Hello, and welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. This is Eric Stopper. This episode is brought to you by Buy Box Experts. Buy Box Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. We have a team of consultants that they're going to look at your listings and they're going to tell you where you're doing it wrong, where you're doing it right. We now have brand analytics that Amazon has given to us, and so we've been playing with that. Lots of insights to gain from there. So if you're an Amazon seller and you want to make more revenue, then go to buyboxexperts.com, click on the free analysis button, and you'll be connected with me and a member of my team. We are going to start charging for it. And so in the next couple of months, it's not going to be free anymore just because we have so many people clicking on that button. So please just go and hit it. Come and talk to us before we start charging for it. Now today we have Bryan Phelps, the founder and CEO of Big Leap, a team of trusted marketing experts who specialize in SEO marketing, social media, reputation management, and marketing automation. If you look online for Big Leap, you will see quote after quote that include one keyword. I wanted to run an analysis just to see how often their name showed up next to this word, but it was trust, just all over the place, from colleagues, from clients, Google reviews, Trustpilot. That's been the whole brand. Bryan has made a deliberate effort to build his company's reputation as a transparent and what I can only see as this refreshingly honest group of experts. Bryan built his first website when he was 12 years old in exchange for paintballing gear, and he's been building and optimizing websites ever since. Bryan is a family man, and I am bringing him on this show because he is an expert. His focus is on website SEO, and we're going to have him teach us a thing or two about how to build our businesses on and off of Amazon. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. Thanks for that intro. That was really, really kind.
Of course. Now, the first question that I have, so the people that come to me, they sell products, right? And they are in various stages of selling those products. Some of them are brand spanking new. Some of them have been selling for a long, long time. And so I kind of want to take the seat of one of your customers, and I want to understand what kind of questions they ask you and what kind of questions you ask them. So when somebody comes to you, what is the first question that somebody asks you when they're looking at working with your company?
What's the first question like a client would ask us?
Yes. And then what do you ask them?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, when we go into those conversations, we're often starting with just trying to understand, what some of their goals are, and not everyone has that, dialed in. Some do. Some say, hey, we want to drive X amount of revenue through organic search or whatever it may be, but most people don't. They don't know. They just know, hey, I want to drive more traffic, and that's a great start, and we can often help from there. But we also have clients that come and their goal may be something different. It may be, hey, if you Google our brand, there's lots of kind of mixed reviews, and we want help, getting more good reviews and case studies and testimonials from our client base. So when people research our brand, it's more positive. So we just start with that baseline, trying to figure out what's kind of the main objective. And then that's where we can really start digging in to some of those details. So that's where we start, and we're asking clients in those kind of first meetings.
And do they typically have a good idea of what their goals are, or do you kind of have to bake that in for them and help them understand what their potential is?
Yeah, I mean, most, and it's completely understandable, don't really have something super specific. I mean, obviously, everyone's kind of in that same boat. They want to drive more revenue and sales, and everyone kind of comes from a different background in SEO. A lot of e-commerce brands generally have a good, background and understanding of kind of what it is or what it can do. But they ultimately kind of rely on us to really get into the weeds and details of that and figure out, what are the right, keywords we need to optimize for, how much search traffic is there for that. And from there, we can kind of calculate out the potential and see, if there's 1,000 searches for a certain kind of backpack that maybe you sell, we can figure out based on what are click-through rates and conversion rates and things like that to figure out what's the actual financial opportunity. So most brands have had the unfortunate opportunity maybe of going into that kind of blind and just saying, hey, we want more traffic. And, someone takes their money and says, okay, well, we'll figure that out. We try to go a little bit deeper into that and actually see, hey, what's the financial opportunity for certain categories? And that helps us prioritize those efforts.
And do you have off-the-shelf softwares that help you figure out this potential? Do you have your own internal stuff that you've built to really gauge the market size for a certain keyword?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a combination. We use some tools to help us pull, things like search volume. There's lots of different studies out there about, click-through rates, depending on what, position you rank for in the search results. But we kind of take all that data, and then that's some tools and spreadsheets and things we built to help kind of figure out those next steps. And then there's just a huge kind of human component of it, of being able to look at the search results and look at a brand, kind of seeing where they're starting from to know, how realistic is it for them to really compete. If they're starting, brand new, trying to compete against some established brands can take a long time. And we've helped people with that, but we've also had brands that are maybe a little bit more established come to us and been able to help them optimize. And the timelines, the returns, things like that are drastically different. So there's a big human element of that and experience that comes into play.
And you've worked with enough big and small companies to be able to kind of gauge what those growth metrics are going to be, or is it always kind of a moving target?
Yeah, I mean, it does move, but we again see just kind of based on where you're starting from, how long things can take and how, again, realistic it is. Again, obviously, with Amazon's a great example. If we do a little analysis and we're looking at a search result and Amazon is in the top 2 or 3 positions, we may want to set our expectations of, hey, realistically, we may be able to rank, 3rd or 4th behind Amazon. And it's possible sometimes we're able to rank higher than Amazon for a specific keyword. But that's where that human element comes in, where, the click-through rate for that first spot where Amazon is going to be really high, and the 3rd or 4th, maybe a quarter of that. So when we're doing those calculations to figure out the opportunity, we really have to take that into account. So again, just kind of depending on where they're starting from, how big a brand is, there's different opportunity, different potential for those brands.
Okay, that actually leads me into one of my questions. It's a perfect segue. So I've had probably 15 calls this month where people are saying, so Amazon is like bidding on my brand name on Google. And I heard that Amazon is one of Google's biggest customers in terms of ad buying. So more and more vendors are finding that, Amazon's advertising for their branded searches on Google and Bing. And essentially, to me, it seems like they're putting an extra step into the buying process. So they're kind of like systematically pushing these brands down on the list. Like you said, it's hard to rank above Amazon, so they're 2 or 3 or 4th in the list. So what do these brands need to do for that specific problem that they're running into? Should they just say, hands off, like I'm just going to let Amazon take that and hope that it routes to me? Or is there a way that you can get that specific Amazon ad to link to their products?
Yeah, I mean, on the paid search side is interesting, and we don't do that as a service, so I'm somewhat familiar with it, but wouldn't necessarily claim to be an expert there. But that's the good and bad, I guess, about building a good brand is, then Amazon kind of takes note and starts bidding on you, and they may send it to your page, they may send it to a broader page, right, where you maybe lose some traffic. So ultimately, there's maybe not a ton you can do, right? You can't go and complain and get that changed. There's trademark rules and things maybe that come into play, but ultimately that's part of the game. So where we would help people focus is if someone is doing a Google search for your brand, if Amazon's showing an ad, obviously you can bid on that as well, and typically you'll be able to show ahead of Amazon. If it's your own branded term, and the costs for that typically aren't as crazy as a non-branded, type search. So that's one thing to start, is just make sure you're bidding on your own brand. But from an organic search perspective, we really try to optimize and make the organic listings, stand out too, and make sure, if you've done a search for a brand, you'll see kind of that main listing, and then sometimes you'll see site links underneath of it where there's more links. So that one organic listing can take up a lot of real estate and hopefully, drive traffic, to your own, website, which, can be ideal if they're if someone's, searching for you on Google by name, most people would rather, that route, to their own website.
So this is such a fascinating issue to me, right? Because these brands are being forced to compete with Amazon on these branded keywords. One thing that I've wondered, right, is we view the funnel as not like what's his name, Russell Brunson or whatever that guy's whole deal is, click funnels. Not that kind of funnel, but the funnel that looks at buyer intent, right? When somebody is searching for, I'll just take nomadic for instance, nomadic travel bag, black, small, right? Like that's cash money for nomadic. That's a sale as far as I'm concerned. But if I'm just searching for like men's travel backpack, then there's a lot more people searching for that, but maybe there's a little less purchase intent. Does your process, does your team focus bottom and then move up the funnel, or do they attack all different stages of the funnel? Kind of how do you guys approach the different stages of buyer interest and keywords?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think with a lot of brands, when someone does a really branded search like that example you gave, a lot of times they don't have anybody bidding on them. And so, they already get a large, chunk of that traffic. And so people that are in that scenario will probably lean more towards, trying to find those non-branded opportunities to drive, new visitors that aren't as familiar with them to just increase their total traffic and sales. But we do, run into that a lot where people, and you've hit on it a lot, of just the ads taking up more room and things like that. So people feel like, hey, I'm losing some of our branded search, this is stuff we're, feel entitled to for good reason. So, that's a tougher one. And so we try again to help people make sure their brand stands out, but it's just a big push. If you kind of take a step back a little bit, a lot of this are conversations I'm recalling from a friend of mine. His name's Alex MacArthur, who's the CMO of Purple Mattress. And obviously they have a crazy story and have done amazing things, but something he's kind of taught me a little bit, and he's taught me a lot over the years, was the importance of, really building a brand. I think over the last 10 years in digital marketing, people felt like, hey, you don't really have to spend money on brand because you can just buy ads and get, Google rankings and kind of trick the system or work the system in a way to drive sales. And that can work and has worked and probably still work in the long term. But if you really build a brand like Purple has, people may skip over the Purple Amazon listing to go straight to Purple's website because they know, hey, maybe there is a better experience to be had on Purple's website. And I've seen that stat that says something like 80% of product search happens on Amazon, which is awesome and crazy at the same time. But, I think brands and e-commerce brands need to be thinking a little bit more like Purple maybe, and how do we really build a brand and build a community, I guess, that people are going to want to come to our website over, Amazon or whatever other, marketplace.
Okay, you mentioned a bunch of stuff there. Alex joined Kizik too recently, the shoe company, and man, they got, I think Nike invested in them. I read that report.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
He's a great guy. Building a brand has been huge for him. The team at Purple did an amazing job. You talked about customer experience. You talked about building a community. You talked about even using these various marketplaces to boost up your brand. I guess and this is probably an unfair question, but in your experience, what are the most powerful aspects of building a brand? Like if you're going to tell someone build a brand, what should they focus on first? And then what should they move to next after that?
Yeah, no, really good question. And I wish Alex was here because I could defer to him because that's more of his world. But yeah, I think, and if of course, I think most people are kind of familiar with just the success of Purple. I think, grew to hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And there's just so many pieces to that, right? It's of course, their website and messaging and what they did there. A lot of it comes down to the products and what they were able to do. I think it's wrong to probably assume like, oh, a brand is completely organic and you can just, build that from the scratch. Again, Purple did a lot of that and through video, but of course, a lot of money gets spent on, going out and promoting that. So I think one thing that they did, for example, of course, in their videos, where it really stands out is just having that personality in their video and helping people relate to it. And it may exclude some people. I think Seth Godin talks a lot about this, kind of finding your tribe, like finding the people that are a good fit for what you do and not worrying as much about the ones that aren't, like that don't
selling to your love
with
group.
your brand. Yeah. And so I think there's a, big component in that. But yeah, there's a lot they can do. And honestly, I think that's going to continue to be a big trend. I mean, Google just recently announced that they're, over the next couple of years, getting rid of third-party cookies on Google Chrome. Apple and I think Firefox have already done that. And so there's going to be a bigger need and a bigger focus on having people on your website and getting, your own customer data, as much of that as you can. And, it may mean needing to, and this is something, again, Alex it kind of educated me on and introduced me to, but it may mean that you need to offer something in return for that, customer data. So if it's a discount or free shipping or whatever it may be, to really collect more of your own data to be used, on your website and advertising. So it's going to be a big shift over the next few years.
I've got like 6 questions. Okay. Explain the third-party cookie thing like I'm 5 for those that aren't experts in SEO and clear their cache and cookies and get mad every time they have to do it because they lose all their passwords.
Yeah, and it's a good question. It can get pretty complicated and technical. And again, one of those things I'm not necessarily the biggest expert in, because it probably gets into more of the advertising side of things. But generally speaking, third-party cookies are a lot of the biggest, I guess, component is the ad networks. So when you go to a website, you're served an ad and cookied, and then you go to other websites and you have retargeting and display ads that kind of follow you around. So that is kind of dying over time, and something will probably come to replace it. But the big driver for that is privacy concerns, and it started with GDPR, and then California recently came out with their version kind of GDPR, and then Google and others are kind of pushing that. So it would prevent those third-party cookies. So if I go on to CNN.com, CNN could give me a cookie, and that's fine. That's a first-party cookie, but all the ad networks that they use maybe wouldn't be able to in that scenario. So having your own, again, customer data and things like that will enable you to just, again, know more about that customer, be able to tailor that experience to them in a different way. So it's, yeah, and again, I wish I was more of an expert on that. I think going to shift retargeting and things that people become used to.
So this does not represent the opinion of buy box experts in any way, but for me, I am, privacy. Maybe it hasn't affected me as bad as it's affected other people. I've been asking a lot of folks, like, okay, what's your concern? Like, how privacy is important to you? Why? Like, what is being stolen from you? What is being used? Man, I think, Alexa, like, listen to me, baby. Like, tell me what I need. You heard that I am complaining of chronic neck pain, and the size of my sheets because of my last Amazon purchase, and roughly my discretionary income, and when I get paid. Serve me the perfect purple mattress ad, right? Like, that's my opinion. You mentioned that you're not quite sure where the shift will turn. What those display ads will be replaced with. But look into the future with me a little bit. What do you think, from your experience and the trends that you've seen? Where will privacy go? Are the people going to win, or is this something where the corporations and the businesses are just so big that big data is never going to go away, and we're not actually going to get the privacy that people are asking for?
Yeah, no, great question. What I've read from Google's announcement and stuff recently, they're talking about this, they're calling it privacy sandbox, but yeah, so I think a lot of it, there'll still be kind of the interest, based things and demographic based things, but I think the intention, and again, could be wrong on this stuff, but is to prevent being able to really identify an individual. And so I think retargeting is potentially a good example of that, where you have, you look at a specific product, it kind of, follows you around. Where you may see a shift, again, it's just based on your interest, demographic, or the types of sites you're on. If you go to a golf website, you'll see ads for whatever, light fixture you looked at on Amazon. You may see a shift where the ads are more relevant, to the website you're looking at than just your search history. So I think that's some changes that, again, you may see from, an SEO perspective, which is more of our expertise. That stuff, a lot of it doesn't really come into play.
Okay.
Yeah.
So earlier you talked about having personality in your brand, right? And I think Purple did their video with the Harmon brothers, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
God, I love those guys. But where does that personality come from for a brand? Is that a CEO thing? Is that a marketing thing? Like, where should that soul come from in a business, in your opinion?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think it can be different places. You know, when you kind of hit on it at the beginning, you mentioned my introduction. We're talking about trust, and that's been intentional. We have it on our website. We we go out and talk to clients. Where that originated was from talking to clients and asking them, hey, what do you like about Big Leap? What do you think's different about Big Leap than other people you've worked with? And so we've gathered that, and that came from, when Big Leap was just me. It started with one person and, spread to around 75 or 80 people that we have now. And so that's a personality. It's also kind of part of our core values and things like that we incorporate. So I think in that example, it's something that we've tried to start from a leadership level and spread. I think, some brands, and I think Purple's a good example, probably was a little bit more marketing led. I don't know the owner super well. Maybe it is similar to them, but from what I understand in that scenario, I think it came from, that marketing team that, Alex and there's many others there that have kind of led, and talking about wanting to have, personality in those videos, but humor and different things. So they found I think they kind of shaped that personality of the company and really, stuck with that through all the videos they've done, all the, the website, the content they create. They've been able to really incorporate that across the brand.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't seen the Purple Mattress videos are great, or just look up Harmon Brothers. They've got a bunch of amazing stuff. So for the people who are they're starting their SEO journey, even those that are just starting their company journey, a couple questions, right? It almost sounds like you need to have your brand's personality worked out before you really start implementing a rock solid SEO strategy, because right, like if I were to search for SEO company that I can trust, I haven't done that, but I'm assuming that you guys would be pretty high on the list because of this core value that you've built. And so would that be a point of counsel for these people before you start looking at SEO and developing strategies for it, that you should have your core values and the thesis of your company and kind of the point of all that worked out? Or can you just say, forget it, and we just want to target the words that people are searching for in our category?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. I think, I guess in that ideal world, having that dialed in, it's not really unique to SEO, but I think from a sales perspective, right, there's literally hundreds of bed-in-a-box brands like Purple and Casper and all of those. But I think one of the reasons, Purple's been so successful is because they did have kind of a personality that made them stand apart from all the copycats and Me Too, brands that jumped in after them, right? Purple isn't necessarily the cheapest out there. Like, there's other options, right? But people, resonate and connect with that. And what that does, I think, have an SEO application sometimes is when you do that, and when you build that personality and that brand, people start searching for you by brand name.
Mm-hmm.
So many people have seen Purple Mattress videos and things like that. There's a lot of search, again, just for their brand, which Google recognizes. And ultimately, where we've come over the last, 20 years with Google search is Google's trying as much as they can to really identify brands and promote brands to the top of the results. That's why you see Amazon and Wikipedia and Wayfair and all these big brands at the top of the search results. So that helps Purple rank better because they have a brand out there. They want that. Google wants that. That's a good user experience for their searchers.
Yeah, there's a quote from one of your articles. It says, organic search results used to be an area where nearly anyone could compete regardless of company size. And this went for Amazon too, same exact thing. While small companies can still compete, it's not as simple as it used to be. Search engines favor high authority sites for short and long tail terms. Think Wikipedia and Forbes. So let's take the perspective of these little product companies, right? What do they establish authority over? Or even can they just rely on that Amazon ad at the top?
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think part of it, and we're big believers in this as an agency, where we prefer to focus on fewer things and be better at less. So again, as an agency, we just do SEO and SEO and content marketing is kind of our bread and butter. We do some other things like marketing automation that help people convert better, but 90% of what we do is kind of in the SEO world. And I think as much as people can from a product company perspective, focus on a niche and be specific, like, travel bags versus like a broader bag category, or, photography bags and things like that. I think someone can really own a brand in that and rank and perform well from a search perspective. It doesn't mean Amazon's not going to rank, but they have a chance versus a really broad term, just like even travel bag's kind of broad, but like a, suitcase, duffel bag, whatever, that gets really hard to compete in from an SEO perspective. But it's, again, kind of going back to the Seth Godin thing, like finding your tribe, your niche. And there's, with, as big as the web has gotten now and continues to grow, even a small niche, there's a lot of opportunity. And so it's just about kind of specializing and becoming an authority in something specific.
Yeah. So for those of you who are scratching your heads wondering, okay, I sell silicone or bamboo straws, right, for sustainability, but you're really just trying to make money. Operate within that niche, right? Like, identify your customer and understand the things that they care about, and tell stories. I saw a travel site recently. It wasn't even a travel site. No, it was a product company that was talking about like the 5 best places in America to get ice cream. And they were selling just some random product for travel. So find a niche, and specifically for Amazon, this is a counsel for everybody. Incremental innovation, right? Like find something that is popular, but make a little tiny change that's perceivable, and then just fill the ether with good content that is SEO rich. Now, on that note, on a previous podcast, I talked about how people don't read the bullet points on Amazon typically. Are you an Amazon Prime member? I
am, yeah.
Do you self-report, right? How often do you read the bullet points?
The bullet points? I know the trend is people don't read, and I believe that. I've seen that. I'm weird. I read details sometimes.
You read?
I don't know. The bullet points, I think so. I think I do.
Typically, people use heuristics to quote unquote read bullet points, right? They're kind of looking for key syntax and 5th grade level reading or so. Now, I said that, and we have a team of what I think are some of the best Amazon copywriters in the world. And one of them came to me and was like, hey, like, we're writers, like we are authors, artists, they would say. And I said, no, that wasn't my intention. You guys, like, we sell your service, and it's amazing. And so for you guys, you have these content writers on staff. Walk me through the philosophy and the process of how you do your keyword research and how you write this copy and how you make it engaging for the people who are going to arrive on your site.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We've, again, been doing this for me personally. I guess it's been 15 plus years, and that's evolved so much. I mean, in the early days of SEO, it was really just stuff keywords and copy, and you'd rank well, and frankly, it worked. If you could go back a while, I haven't seen one in a long time, but you go to a bottom of a website and you just see like keywords, and sometimes they're like almost the same color.
White text,
and, yeah, exactly, just kind of the same color, and that would work and help people rank better. And you fast forward a little bit, Google kind of killed that, but even if within your website copy, people would. It just sounds like a robot, right? You can read it and it sounds just really fake. And that even worked for a long time. Google's gotten a lot better since then of just understanding themes and concepts and measuring other kinds of metrics that help with that. So instead of just saying, oh, how many keywords they have on their site, they're looking at more specific metrics of like, hey, how much time are people spending on their website? Are they clicking on the search result? Are they skipping over the number 1 result and going to the number 2 result because something stood out in the copy on the search result listing? And so where we've shifted with that over the years is kind of following along with that, but really focusing on writing copy that, like you kind of said, those artists write, the people that are writing for conversion mostly, to educate people, trying to help make that flow. And so bullet points are an example of where we adapted to and maybe need to keep changing, but working in video is a big component of that now, trying to show how things work through video and imagery. Again, we keep talking about Purple, but when you look at Purple's website, they do a great job of educating people about the website, and it's engaging. Like you're not reading just a block of text, you're kind of following along and learning more about even their products. And then throughout their blog and other places, you just learn more about, comparisons. They do a great job of showing like why choose Purple over a memory foam mattress or things like that. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into the copywriting side of things, and you have to keep updating it too. And I think that's something people forget, is they write it once and leave it for years, and that fades fast.
How fast? How often should they be revamping their content on their pages?
Well, I think with certain, there's some products that are temporary. They kind of maybe change every year. And so when a new version, a new model comes out, that's an opportunity to revamp that. But a lot of that can kind of come down to the kind of value of that product. I mean, Purple's selling, a handful of products and, $1,000 plus. They can really spend the time regularly to be testing and constantly changing and modifying that. If you're selling something that's maybe a smaller ticket item, it's a little harder to do that. You may need to extend the frequency of that to, yearly or something like that.
This is all very interesting. So I have a whole bunch of theories about how marketing should be done. You mentioned some of these sites, they educate, and they're not big block text. It's almost like you follow along and it kind of guides you through pictures. I was on a website probably 2 months ago, and the buy now button didn't say buy now. It said I deserve it. Right? This kind of almost conversational content in their page is that, like, they got in my mind, and I'm talking about them right now. Maybe I don't have great brand recall, but is that a strategy that is, that has wind in its sails that people should start looking at? Is almost like selling as if you're in somebody's head? And do you guys write with that style? Like what's kind of your style guide for when you approach a brand and you're writing for them?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think a part of that ties into the whole brand piece, right? Like if you're, if you're appealing to maybe a certain audience, like something trying to be kind of cute like that maybe doesn't fly, right? And they don't like that, it doesn't match with, kind of the audience. And so you have to be aware of that, first of all. Second piece is, I think, whether it's, I deserve that, or, a different kind of something different than the traditional wording, we've seen can be really successful. It's one of those things you definitely want to test, and you can do that through conversion optimization, A/B testing, type software, because we've seen kind of both sides of that. Something that stands out can be really great because people, it's kind of like banner blindness that you have with like banner ads. You can have the same thing with a buy now type button in some cases. So it can be really helpful and maybe increase, clicks to the buy now. But if it's not intuitive enough, that can be a detriment. So if you're getting kind of too cute with it and confusing people, you could actually see a decrease in performance on something like that. So I think first and foremost, just, how does that whole experience, as part of that customer experience you talked about, how does that tie in, and can it work with the brand? One example I read in a book, it was a weird memory. It was about, web design, and I was actually on a jury. So I was just waiting for a jury. I was on a jury for a murder trial in Provo, Utah. And I had to go in for about 5 days, and I read this book while I was there. But it gave this example of like your shopping cart, as a common term. And people have tried testing that with different things, and people have shopping bags sometimes if you're Nordstrom or something like that. And, again, same idea though, testing that and making sure that even if it's on brand, that it's not too far of a departure from what people expect and not causing a decrease in performance.
Yeah, people recognize the term shopping cart. And so I've seen even like, the little bag, right? That's kind of become ubiquitous as a symbol of a shopping cart. And I don't like it. I always try to opt for just having a little shopping cart symbol. So you talked about data acquisition, right? Knowing these customers and how they operate and how they interact with your products and your website. Amazon leaves us in the dark a lot of the time. There's very little data that we can get other than like what terms people are using to find us and how much the bid was for that term. So on the flip side of the coin, right, everybody should be collecting data to better understand their customers. So when somebody lands on a site, you have like email garnering pop-ups that you can collect someone's information with. What have you seen as the best way to gather the maximum amount of information with the minimal amount of barrier for website traffic?
Yeah, I think that's an important part because it's like you said, it's ideal. We all want to collect as much information as we can, but we've all heard the concept of like, hey, reduce friction. And again, I'm echoing some of this from things I've heard and learned from different people over the years. But with the change in third-party tracking and things like that, the advice that I've heard and I think can make sense, and it's maybe a tough one. And again, I always advocate testing these things, but I was saying that even though having guest checkout on your own website reduces friction, we may need to make that shift and be forcing people a little bit to create accounts. So it doesn't. Again, there's that risk, I guess, of losing out on that. But if you have a good plan in place, I guess, to take that customer data and do something with that. So now that you have their customer info, if you're Purple and you sold a mattress, in a couple of weeks, maybe you're following up with the mattress protector and the sheets or different things. Where if that was a guest checkout, or I'm not familiar. Yeah, or with Amazon, I don't know. And you could educate me on this. Like if someone buys something from Amazon, does Amazon pass along any customer info?
Oh, you get nothing, man. No, they don't give a crap about the seller. Yeah, no, that's a fact. They give you nothing.
So that's a good example though, where you're kind of tough, and it's a tough balance, right? Because Amazon's huge and there's sales to be had there, and you don't want to not be there. But we also, again, it's kind of this choose your own adventure thing. Do you want to go the path of least resistance maybe now, or go down this path of building a brand, collecting information and data, and trying to not be completely reliant on an Amazon or someone like that?
So I've got two more questions for you. The first one is very, very general, and I'm for those who are listening, I know you're going to knock this out of the park, but what is the impact that Google can have on your business and your reputation?
Oh, it can be huge. So when I got started in digital marketing and SEO specifically in the kind of early 2000s, I was able to, just as a kind of one-man show, and I even had some operation stuff in India, some writers and things like that, build my own website, get it ranked organically, and make money from advertising networks and affiliate networks, including Amazon. I was an affiliate there before they moved to like and then this is a long time ago, but they moved, they used to have like a 30-day cookie or something. And so I would get commissions forever on Amazon stuff, and they eventually closed that up pretty quickly. But I was able to do that. And so that from an impact perspective, I was able to build almost this whole company just completely on the side of websites and doing that. And, that's basically almost impossible now. I mean, there are other affiliate opportunities out there and people doing that well, but you really have to build basically a brand as an affiliate to be able to do that, where you used to be able to kind of cut those corners. So the opportunity is still enormous when you look at, even though there's a lot of ads showing up now and Google's kind of pushing people to their own, ads and their own sites, it's still something like 40 to 60% of people, when they do a search, click on an organic listing. I think paid search is only like 5%. Yeah, it's interesting. It's recent data done by a company called JumpShot. And then there's still a large amount of people that just don't click on anything because they get an instant answer depending on what you're looking for. So people are talking about that, and people have been talking about, is SEO dead for as long as I can remember. So Google, of course, you can look at their earnings, things like that. They're making a lot of money off ads, and they're trying to get people to click on ads. But even if the organic opportunity has decreased over the last 5 years, it's still, like I said, 40 to 60% of clicks, going to organic, which is really incredible. So again, still a ton of opportunity to drive traffic and sales, through organic search. And then the other part of your question about how can it harm a reputation? People do their research now, and they look at Amazon reviews, they look at just other, blogs, forums, things like that. And that's what's showing up on those branded search results. So like I mentioned kind of earlier, that's where we've helped some businesses with their online reputation. And our version of that is really specific to the search results. When someone Googles your your company name and brand name, what shows up. And we try to make sure we try to emphasize all the good stuff out there, and just kind of put your company's best foot forward in a sense.
That's amazing. So can people not, or I guess people can spot an ad. People know the difference between an ad and an organic listing result on Google.
Yeah, Google does a good job of trying to blend them. They actually just today and yesterday started rolling out the same display that you have on your mobile phone to your desktop, which just from like the design perspective. So where it's labeled ad is much more obscure and kind of harder to see. And so, yeah, I mean, they want people to click on those paid ads, but most people, and there really is a differentiation in your age and demographics. Younger people tend to not click on ads as much. And it's kind of, that trend. People know it's an ad. They don't want to fall into the trap, I guess. And so they'll skip over those. Yeah, that's right. So.
Not getting tricked this time. I was on Twitter May 16th, 2018. Let's go back in time a little bit. Optimized for voice search. Talk to me about that. Voice, I have an Alexa. We've got Siri. She heard me. Oh my goodness. We've got all these voice tools. What does that look like? Tell me, do all businesses need to be considering voice results? And at what stage should you start thinking okay, people are asking Alexa about questions that my product can answer? Do you guys do that first of all? And then where are we headed, right? Which companies should start looking at voice heavily?
Yeah, voice search is super interesting to me. And I think it was about a year and a half ago, I did a presentation on it at a conference in California. And so I've spent a lot of time kind of looking at that and digging into it. And there's a lot of, I think, probably misinformation about it and how it impacts businesses in a lot of ways. There was a stat that everybody quotes. You look up any stats about voice search and you'll see this one that says by 2020, which is now, 50% of all searches will be voice search. And if you keep kind of going down the rabbit hole on that quote that people always use with maybe not all the context, it was a quote by, and now I can't remember because it's been so long, but someone in Asia from maybe it was Baidu or somebody that worked there. And this was probably 10 years ago that he was predicting this. And so he was really kind of looking out into the future. And in some of the Asian countries, voice search is more popular and common. So he was really kind of predicting down the road, but people still use that stat kind of saying, hey, it's 2020, 50% of searches are voice search. And that stat hasn't really, held up over the years. So there is a lot of voice search. I'm not saying that you completely ignore it, but you have to really think about how it's being used or potentially being used, with your brand. So when you talk about like B2B brands, for example, it's a lot less common. People aren't asking, Alexa about their project management software or anything like that so much. With some B2C brands, I think, it can be a little bit more common. But when Google and other people put out these stats about, hey, there were 1 billion voice searches, they're also counting a lot of stuff that aren't really searches. So they're talking about set a timer for 5 minutes when I'm putting my kid in a timeout and remind me to do whatever. So voice search and interaction is growing a ton. And there are, Alexa is a good example where you can just, reorder products directly from it. But it really hasn't had a huge impact on most businesses that, we've really seen. Again, something to be aware of. And there's a lot you can do to even prepare for it now. And so kind of the gist of some of that presentation about, hey, what should you do now? If you really have a good SEO campaign in place, you're already in a way preparing for it. Mm-hmm. Google years ago came out with in partnership with other search engines, website called schema.org. And it's just a way to mark up your content to say, hey, these are the reviews for this product. This is the price point for the product. And it just clearly in the code tells Google that this is what it is. And so that helps them kind of structure their data. And so they can answer, questions through voice search. If you do a search and you see those kind of instant answers up at the top, if you search for, hey, is this, I was doing a search today. I'm trying to think of what it was. It was about a ceiling fan. and it just gives you the answer from a search result. When you ask Google, like your Google Home devices or your Nest devices, that's where that answer is coming from.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things to prepare for voice search, you should be doing for regular search right now. So if you're not really aware of, where that overlap is, or if you're feeling like, hey, we're not working on our kind of instant answers and rich snippets and structured data, then you might be behind the curve a little bit there and want to maybe jump on that from an SEO perspective.
Yeah, I always say, if you want to know how people are searching for you, just ask Alexa, right? And act as if you were a new customer. And we prompt CEOs to pitch us about their company, and that's just filled with all kinds of gold nuggets, right, of how they describe it. So if you're selling a product, understand what people are asking their robots, right? Understand how they're engaging with searches on Google and which terms you are the right solution for. Bryan, thank you so much. Where do I send people to get in touch with you and your team?
Yeah, I mean, our website's bigleap.com, and so you can always connect with us there. We're on, all the major social networks. Me personally, if you want to reach out to me, LinkedIn is a great place to find me, and Twitter. And kind of both of my handles there are just my name, Bryan Phelps.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bryan.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. It was fun.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.